Hello there, and welcome back to another edition of the Hot Lap Classic Remastered. This time we're taking a look at the 1999 Tommykaira ZZ3. Tommykaira and its weird collection of cars in this game often gets people asking questions, and usually, because it appeared in later games, it's the ZZ2 that gets asked about. Is it actually a real car? Was it something planned? And it turns out, to an extent, it was. The ZZ3 gets less attention, and I actually think this is far more interesting because a lot of people have to ask, is the ZZ3 actually a real thing? Was this considered? Well, as it turns out, kind of. What happened is, I think, because Tommykaira has a lot of representation in the game, I'm assuming Tommykaira Polyphony visited their factory or studio or whatever they had. And they found a sketch of this car. And the sketch, you can find it on the internet, of this ZZ3. And it seems they've modelled a car around that one sketch, which is interesting. You do get some sort of signs that this car was sort of definitely a concept car and not something that was actually even really prototyped at this stage. You can see how far back the rear window comes, considering this is a mid-engine rear drive car. That does pose the question where the engine would go. I mean, what engine would even be in this car? I'm assuming it's some sort of Nissan derived unit, but still. And with the size of the wheels as well, yeah, where's that engine going to go becomes a bit of a problem. But it's a cool looking thing. I don't know if it's good looking. The front end especially is quite dorky. With its sort of split grille. It sort of looks almost like a really bad Pontiac concept car from the 90s. Like, this would be like the new Sunfire or something, I don't know. But, yeah, interesting looking thing. It also has the tiniest rear lights on it, which is quite cute. But, it's cool, definitely. I think the side profile, it looks really good, which, ironically enough, was basically the picture Polyphony saw and modelled the rest of it around that, I guess. But, yeah, interesting car. Anyways, one thing we are going to know about it by the end of today is how quick it is around the Motorsports Land track. It is mid-engined, rear-wheel drive, 280 horsepower, 616 kilos, good power-to-weight ratio, but quite a scary prospect in a car like this, and I'll tell you why in a second. But first, this car's going to get 6 laps to set the best time it possibly can. Current leader is the Mitsubishi GTO LM Edition 99. That's a time of 27.017. The little ZZ3 is not beating that. Now, smash into a wall. In terms of what the ZZ3 is up against, this could go one of two ways. It could be Lotus Elise-esque, where it gets bounced around a lot on the grass and isn't very quick and doesn't set a very competitive lap time, or it could be like its real life cousin, if you will, the ZZS, where it's actually a very nice car to drive and defies all odds and really beats Lotus at their own game. And I've got to say, feeling this over the bumps, it feels more like that latter. This feels pretty well composed, a lot like that Europa we had out last time, which doesn't handle all like any of the other Lotuses. This actually doesn't feel too bad. 31.366 on its first flying run. I don't suspect this is going to be as quick as the ZZS. The ZZS, it was a very nice, easy car. That lap times just kept coming with that. Of course, that had racing modification as well, which helped. This doesn't have the benefit of that. I mean, it's not even a real car, so what would the race mod even look like on this thing? But, yeah, we shall see. This looks like it's 30.780. It is right on the heels of the ZZS. I take that back. Can the little tiny Tommykaira that could beat its, again, the real car Tommykaira made? I'm assuming, as with most of the, despite being a tuning company, Tommykaira sort of fell into a trap you see a lot of small car makers, both Fisker, do, where they try and sort of, they release like one product and then try and overreach and produce like everything. So, you know, in the case of Tommykaira, they made the little ZZS sort of sports car, and then they were like, oh, this is great, we can make this, and then we can make a Grand Touring car in ZZ2, and then we'll make a little version for sort of more everyday purposes called the ZZ3, and it's going to be cheaper and more, yeah, and then it just, you know, falls apart. If Tommykaira was still around today, I'm sure they'd be like, oh, well, first we're going to launch, well, they did actually launch an electric ZZ in the end, but they'd be like, oh, we're going to launch the electric ZZ, and then we're going to do a crossover, and then we're going to do a coupe crossover, and it's going to be great, and Fisker. Just trying to see if I can eke out a little bit on this lap. It is a little bit like the ZZ2, where the lap time sort of comes to it. It is a lovely driving car, this. It really is. I'm deeply impressed with the ZZ3. Gonna have a little bit of understeer coming around there. 30.511. That is still a very quick lap time, but that final sector, it's one of those cars, we sort of saw this with the Europa, and I talked about it with the Europa, and I'll talk about it with this, where because it's so light, it only weighs 611 kilos, and because the engine's in the middle, there's nothing really pushing the front wheels down, and that does result in understeer, and this car definitely had a little bit of understeer in that final sector. If I didn't get caught out by that understeer, I think we could have been on for a 30.4, but that is a deeply impressive time from this little car. I am shocked. I really am. That is fantastic to drive. A 30.511 will place this into 155th place. It beats an Acura NSX, beats the Silvia Spec R. Does beat out the Lancia Stratos and the Lotus Europa and a Lotus Esprit V8. As I mentioned, it's about 0.2 up on the ZZS. It's well up on something else you might compare this to, something like the Tom's Angel. I'm deeply impressed with how much traction that has. It's a really nice car to drive again. And someone tells me if the understeer hadn't slipped up, if it was a little bit more sticky on that front end, you know, we could be looking at like a 30.2. That is a deeply impressive car. I am very happy I've given this car a shout, and while it may not have been a real thing in real life, it's certainly real in GT2, and it's really proved a point. Anyways, that is it for this episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Join me next time when I'll be driving something completely different. Until then, farewell.